The church clock struck 6 when I saw them walk past my porch. Heads high, voices low, acting like the wind couldn't hear. My own daughter, Rochelle, with that man she married. Slick shoes, slick tongue, slicker lies. They thought I didn't notice the papers under his arm. They thought my kindness made me blind. It only made me quiet. "Mama don't need to see this part," he said. "It's just signatures, babe." She laughed. "She trusts us." Trust. That word used to sound like gospel. Now it sounded like gunpowder. I stirred my coffee slow, watching the cream bloom like a storm cloud. Outside, the world was gold and quiet, but inside me, thunder was tuning up. They'd been dropping hints for months. "Maybe you should rest more, Mama. Maybe that old house is too much. Maybe it's time to simplify. Simplify." I raised 3 kids on a waitress check and prayer. I built this house with my hands, brick by brick, lunch by lunch. Now my own daughter wanted to simplify me out of it. "She won't even know the difference," he said. "We'll just refinance in our name. It's not stealing if it's family." That's how snakes talk when they wear perfume. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window listening to the crickets gossip, watching the moon hang there like a witness who'd seen too much. My hands shook, not from fear, but from memory, because I remembered the last time someone tried to take what I'd built, and I remembered how calm I stayed then, too. Quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet means calculating. I took out the old tin box from under my bed, the one labeled Sunday School Donations. Inside were papers older than Rochelle's marriage: the deed, the tax receipts, the first payment slips, the notarized signature my late husband and I made the year she was born. They thought I didn't keep records. But baby, I kept everything. The next morning, Rochelle came over with her smile ironed flat. "Mama, we got you something," she said, waving a folder. "It's a new plan, lower payments, less stress. You just sign here and—" I didn't take the pen. I didn't even blink. "You look tired, sugar," I said. "Maybe you should sit down." Her man, Derek, stood behind her, grinning like a cat that finally cornered the bird. "It's just paperwork, Miss Helen. You know we got your best interests at heart." I smiled, the kind of smile that don't reach the eyes. "I know you do," I said, "but sometimes the heart needs to be tested in court." He blinked. Rochelle froze. That was the first time I saw fear on his face. Not because I shouted, but because I didn't. Because silence, when it comes from a woman who's been lied to too long, is prophecy. I folded my apron, set my coffee down, and said real slow, "Derek, you go on and hand me that folder." "Sure thing," he said. "Too quick." "Good," I said. "Now leave it on the table, and don't forget your manners. Take your shoes off my porch when you leave." When they were gone, I called a man I hadn't spoken to in 15 years, my cousin Raymond. Last time I saw him, he was wearing a clerk's badge and a crooked tie. Now he was a full-time courthouse officer with friends in all the right hallways. "Helen Price," he said. "Lord, I thought you done retired from raising hell." "Not yet," I told him. "I'm just rebranding." He laughed, that deep courtroom laugh that smells like ink and old paper. "You finally need my kind of help?" "Baby," I said, "I need to file a reminder." 3 days later, I walked into the courthouse like it was Sunday service. Same hush, same judgment, same choir of whispers. The clerk looked up. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I slid the deed across the counter like a sermon. "Name's Helen Price. I own this house, and I believe somebody been trying to rewrite my gospel." She looked it over. "You have proof?" "Baby," I said, "I got proof, purpose, and patience." That night, I dreamed of my husband. He was sitting on that same porch, hands folded, eyes calm. "You always were the storm after the silence," he said. "They don't know what quiet thunder sounds like till it hits." I woke up smiling, not angry, not scared, just ready. Weeks passed. I didn't mention the court date. Let them plan their little simplify scheme. Let them print the fake signatures and smile through supper. The quieter I got, the louder the truth became. The day of the hearing, I wore the same dress I wore to my husband's funeral. Navy blue, pearl brooch, no tears. Rochelle came in wearing red. Derek held her hand too tight. He thought the color meant power. I thought it looked like guilt. The judge, an old black man with kind eyes, said, "Mrs. Price, we're here today regarding a property transfer request filed under your name." I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm here to correct a misunderstanding." "And what misunderstanding is that?" "The one where kindness got mistaken for blindness." A small laugh rippled through the courtroom. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a second. Derek stood up. "Your Honor, this is a family matter." She agreed. "Did she sign?" the judge asked. "Well, not exactly." "Then it's not an agreement, it's a fantasy," I said. The courtroom went still. Even the AC sounded scared to hum. "I brought evidence," I added, and I laid it out, page by page, receipt by receipt, signature by signature, each one a nail in their little coffin of deceit. Rochelle looked at me like I'd grown another heart. "Mama, you kept all this?" "Baby," I said, "I kept you alive through winters with no heat. You think I'd forget a deed?" Derek's lawyer tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "this woman's record is flawless. Looks like she's not just the rightful owner. She's the only one who's been paying the taxes the past 10 years. Well, yes, but no buts. Only signatures, and hers are the only ones that count." The gavel hit wood like thunder after prayer. "Case dismissed," the judge said. "Ownership confirmed, Mrs. Helen Price." Silence, then whispers. Then a kind of holy laughter rose up in my chest. Not joy, not revenge, just release. Rochelle cried. Derek stood frozen. I turned to them, calm as Sunday. "You thought my kindness made me blind," I said, "but it only made me quiet till court." Outside, the sun hit the courthouse steps just right. Warm, golden, merciful. Reporters weren't there. Cameras didn't care. But that moment felt like heaven taking notes. I walked past them slow, letting my heels echo on marble. Each step said lesson learned. "Mama," Rochelle whispered behind me, "can we talk?" "One day," I said, "when you remember what family means." I reached my car, opened the door, and looked back just once. Her red dress looked small against the courthouse pillars. Derek's shoulders drooped. The wind carried their silence all the way to my heart, and let it go. I drove home with the windows down. The radio hummed old gospel, and for the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel too quiet, because quiet ain't empty. Quiet is the sound of power charging. Quiet is where God whispers his next move. And baby, he just made one. The courthouse victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exhale after holding my breath for a lifetime. Justice is heavy, baby, even when it's yours. The morning after, I made coffee like always. Same chipped mug, same gospel hum under my breath. But the silence in that kitchen was different. Not empty, not angry. It was peace with scars. Outside, a dove landed on the porch rail and watched me, white against wood, still as truth. I smiled and whispered, "We made it, old friend." Because sometimes peace shows up wearing feathers. By noon, the phone started ringing. Rochelle first, then my middle boy, David, then the church ladies. Everybody wanted a piece of the story. Everybody except the two people who wrote it. When I finally picked up, it was the pastor. "Sister Helen, I heard what happened downtown. Lord used you mighty strong." "He used my patience first," I said. "The thunder was just a bonus." He laughed that soft, holy laugh. "You coming to service Sunday?" "Wouldn't miss it. Gotta thank him proper." That evening, I baked cornbread. Not for them, for me. Because victory tastes best when it's warm and self-made. The smell filled the house, mixing with lemon cleaner and old wood. the same smells that raised my children. I thought about Rochelle as a little girl, pigtails, knees scraped, smiling when I called her my sunshine. How does sunshine grow up to cast shadows? I didn't know, but I prayed she'd find her light again, because revenge ends stories, but redemption rewrites them. Around sunset, a car pulled into my drive. Engine off, silence, then slow footsteps on gravel. I didn't move. I just kept wiping the same plate till it squeaked. "Mama?" That voice, shaky, small. "Rochelle." "You can come in," I said, not looking up. She stepped inside like the air might break. Her eyes were swollen, red dress replaced by gray hoodie, sleeves chewed at the cuffs. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know he—" "Don't lie, baby. You knew enough." Tears slid down her cheeks, quiet as confession. I thought if we handled the bills, you'd rest more. He said a lot," I cut in. "And you believed the part that paid your comfort, not your conscience." Silence again. The clock ticked like judgment. Finally, she whispered, "He left." "You mean he ran?" "Yeah. Took the car, emptied the joint account. I filed a report." I nodded. Sometimes God clears the table before serving the lesson. She looked at me, confused. "Mama, how can you still be calm after everything?" I poured her a glass of sweet tea, set it down between us. Because rage is loud, but it don't rebuild nothin'. Quiet does. Quiet plants. Quiet praise. Quiet outlasts. She cried harder. I didn't move. I let her. That was her storm, and storms need room to finish. When she finally breathed steady, she asked, "Can I stay here a while?" The question hit different. Soft, broken, childlike. Part of me wanted to say yes right away. Another part remembered forged papers, fake signatures, courtroom faces. I took a breath. "You can stay," I said, "but not as the same person who tried to sell my home. You stay as my daughter, not my debt." She nodded, trembling. "I'll earn it back, Mama. Somehow." "You will," I said. "Start by washing the dishes." She blinked, then laughed through tears. That sound healed something I didn't know was still bleeding. Next morning, she cooked breakfast. Eggs too salty. Toast half burnt. But it was a start. We ate in near silence, except for gospel radio humming, "His eye is on the sparrow." Felt like the house was breathing again. After breakfast, she found an envelope on the counter, her name written in my handwriting. Inside was a single check. $500. "Mama, what's this?" "Seed money," I said. "Not for spending, for growing. Find work, learn something, fix what broke." She clutched it like scripture. "You still trust me?" "Trust is earned," I said. "But grace I give for free." Days turned into weeks. Neighbors waved again. Evenings smelled like frying okra and second chances. Every now and then, a letter came from the courthouse. Follow-ups, filings, formalities, each one a reminder. Justice doesn't just happen. You have to maintain it. One afternoon, I found Rochelle sitting on the porch with an old photo album. "I forgot how young you looked here," she said. "I forgot how fearless I was," I replied. "Do you ever regret not remarrying?" "No, I've been married to purpose ever since." She smiled. "Guess that's what I need. A little purpose." "You got it," I said. "It's called starting over." That night, I dreamed again. Same porch, same husband. Only this time he was rocking slow, humming low. "You did good, Helen," he said. "She's home." "Yeah," I said, "but I ain't sure she's staying." "Doesn't matter," he said. "Home is where lessons finish." When I woke, I found Rochelle already gone, just a note on the table. "Mama, I got a job interview in the city. Thank you for forgiving me before I deserved it." I smiled through the ache, because love, when it's real, always costs something. Weeks passed. Then one Sunday after service, the pastor called me up front. "Sister Helen," he said, "we'd like you to speak a word on forgiveness." The congregation clapped. I wasn't ready, but maybe I was born ready. I took the mic, eyes scanning faces, young, old, broken, hopeful. Sometimes people mistake quiet for blind, I began. But quiet don't mean we don't see. It means we're waiting on the right courtroom and the right judge. Amen rolled through the pews. Forgiveness ain't weakness, it's freedom. It lets God keep working while we stop hurting. And baby, He will finish the work. The church stood. Some cried. Some shouted. Me. I just smiled and whispered, still standin', still lovin', still learnin'. That night, a text lit my phone. Unknown number. 3 words. I got hired. Then, thank you, Mama. I put the phone down and looked out the window. Moonlight on my lawn looked like peace folding its hands. Because kindness didn't make me blind. It made me steady. It made me strong enough to wait for justice, and patient enough to open the door when mercy knocked. The first rain after the trial came slow, polite, like it was knocking before entering. It tapped on my roof the way truth taps on a guilty heart. Steady, patient, refusing to leave. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching droplets race each other down the glass. That's how healing looks sometimes, messy but moving. The world had gone quiet since the courthouse. No gossip, no drama, no sudden visits. Even the wind seemed to be minding its manners. But quiet doesn't mean nothing's happening. Quiet is where new things start to breathe. A week later, a letter arrived. Not an envelope, a package. Brown paper, courthouse stamp, my name written neat. Inside, documents, check stubs, copies of transfers. Derek's trail. The man didn't just try to steal my house. He'd been using Rochelle's name to borrow against my land. My stomach dropped like bad news in a hymn. I sat there, paper trembling in my hands. For a second, anger tried to rise again, but I caught it mid-breath. Because this wasn't the same Helen from before the court. This Helen didn't shout. She strategized. I drove back downtown, rain still drumming the hood. The same courthouse, same marble steps, different fire in my chest. Raymond met me halfway up. Back so soon, cousin? Justice got layers, I said. I'm just peeling the next one. He grinned. You always did like your lessons thorough. We went inside, filed a fraud extension, signed 3 papers, stamped 2. By the time I left, my hands smelled like ink and victory again. Back home, the phone buzzed. Rochelle. Mama, I think I saw him. Where? Gas station off Route 12. He didn't see me. I felt my pulse shift. Good, let him run. God's got longer legs than the law. She laughed nervously. You really believe that? Baby, I live that. 2 nights later, I woke up to barking. Old hound, Rusty, going wild by the porch. Headlights flashed through the curtains, a truck idling in the drive. I reached for the bat behind the door. When I stepped out, the rain had stopped. Steam rose off the ground like spirits stretching after prayer. There he was, Derek, soaked, stubble grown, eyes hollow. Miss Helen, please, I just need to talk. Talk? I said, voice calm. Last time you wanted my signature. What's the topic tonight? Repentance or robbery? He dropped to his knees right there in the mud. I lost everything. She's gone. The bank froze my account. I messed up. That's true, I said. But at least now you own something. He blinked. Own what? The consequences. He started crying. Not soft tears. Ugly ones. The kind that come from realizing you've been your own worst enemy. I just wanted a fresh start, he said. Then start fresh. Somewhere that ain't my porch. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it gentle. Let the night decide what to do with him. By morning, he was gone. All that remained were muddy footprints and a folded note on my doormat. I don't deserve forgiveness, but thank you for not hating me. I read it twice, then burned it in the sink. Some words don't need to live forever. Rochelle called again that evening. He came by. He tried. Did you? No, baby, I ain't the punishment. I'm just the proof that it finds you. She sighed. I'm learning that, Mama. Good. Keep learning before life enrolls you again. Weeks passed into months. Spring crept back. My garden started blooming like it was celebrating something I couldn't see yet. Every petal looked like closure, every weed like a warning. One Saturday, Rochelle drove down with groceries and a framed certificate. "I finished the bookkeeping course," she said. "So now you handle money honestly?" I teased. "Lord, Mama," she laughed. "Yes." We both laughed until tears turned into relief. Then she grew quiet. "You think folks ever really forgive themselves?" "They do," I said, "when they stop rehearsing the lie and start rehearsing the lesson." That night we sat on the porch, radio low, gospel singer humming about grace and gravel roads. I told her stories she'd forgotten, the time her daddy fixed the roof in a storm, how he said, "Some leaks don't show till the rain's honest." She looked at me sideways. "That's what I was. Your leak?" "No, baby, you were the rain. You just needed to learn honesty." She laughed, soft and clean. The kind of laugh that don't hide anything. A month later, I got invited to speak at the local women's group. Courthouse survivors, mothers, widows, workers. They wanted the Helen Price story. I almost said no. Then I thought, if my pain paid tuition, somebody ought to get the scholarship. So I went. "Ladies," I said, "we got this habit of mistaking meek for weak. But baby, meekness is power that's polite." Murmurs, nods. They thought my kindness made me blind, but kindness just means I see deeper than revenge. They clapped, they cried. They came up after with hugs that smelled like cocoa butter and hope. And somewhere between their arms and my heartbeat, I realized I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the voice. Later that week, the pastor called again. "Sister Helen, one of our youth girls, wants to intern at the courthouse. Says you inspired her." "Then tell her the first rule of law," I said. "What's that?" "Never confuse silence with surrender." The story started spreading. Small-town gossip turning into gospel truth. Miss Helen stood her ground. Miss Helen forgave her daughter. Miss Helen don't play, but she prays. And somehow that story found folks I never met. Single mothers, tired nurses, men trying to start over. They wrote letters, emails. Some just dropped notes in my mailbox that said, "Thank you for reminding me it ain't over." One evening, while watching the sunset stain the sky pink, Rochelle sat beside me and said, "You think Daddy would be proud?" "Baby," I said, "he's probably up there bragging in God's break room." We laughed again. Then she asked, "So what now, Mama?" "Now," I said, "now we rest. Then we rise again, because quiet don't mean done." As night fell, lightning bugs started blinking over the yard like tiny almonds. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and listened to crickets, to wind, to forgiveness breathing between us. And for the first time, kindness didn't feel like blindness. It felt like sight, clear, steady, unstoppable. The season shifted again, soft as breath. Magnolia trees bloomed heavy with white, like forgiveness wearing perfume. The house stood taller now, not because of wood or nails, but because its foundation finally had peace poured into it. I still kept the same morning routine: coffee, prayer, porch swing. That rhythm had been my therapy since before the lies, before the courtroom, before the tears. And in that rhythm, I found something even sweeter than revenge: understanding. One morning, I got a letter postmarked from Atlanta, Rochelle's handwriting. Inside, folded neat as manners, was a photo. Her in a new office, badge-clipped, smile wide. Behind her, the courthouse seal on the wall. A note on the back said, "Mama, I got the job. Assistant clerk. Your old courthouse. Full circle. I love you." I sat there holding that picture like it was gospel. Because sometimes God don't just restore, He replays the melody with better harmony. I set the photo by my husband's picture and whispered, "We did it, baby." She finally heard the music. Life went on. Neighbors waved. The mailman stopped to chat. And every once in a while, a stranger would walk up and say, "You that Miss Helen, ain't you? The one who stood up in court?" I'd smile slow. "I'm the one who stood still, baby. God did the standing up." They always laughed, not knowing how literal that was, because that day in court, I didn't feel powerful. I felt carried. One Sunday after service, the pastor asked if I'd mentor a few young women, girls trying to find their way through law school and life's storms. So I did. Every Thursday they came to my porch, books in hand, heads full of questions. I didn't preach, I just told stories, the kind that start with pain and end with purpose. "You see, child," I said once, "there's a difference between being silent and being silenced. One's choice, the other's a chain. Learn the difference before somebody hands you both." That line made one of them cry. Another wrote it down word for word, and I realized my quiet had turned into curriculum. Months later, Rochelle came home for Easter. She'd grown softer, not weaker, just gentler. We cooked together, like old times. Cornbread, greens, ham, glazed in honey and patience. Over dinner, she said, "Mama, they asked me to testify next month." "Testify? For what?" "Fraud case, same pattern Derek used, different victims." I froze mid-bite. She smiled, small and proud. Guess I learned from the best. I didn't cry, though my throat burned. Just nodded slow. Then speak truth, baby. Speak it like it costs something. 'Cause real truth always does. When the day came, I sat in the back of that courthouse, watched my daughter take the stand, voice steady, eyes clear. Every sentence sounded like healing, walking upright. When the judge thanked her, she turned, just enough for our eyes to meet. That look said everything words couldn't. "You were right, Mama. Quiet wins longer." Afterward, we drove home with the windows down. She asked, "You ever think about moving? Getting a new place?" "Why?" I smiled. "I already live in a miracle." She laughed. "You and your sayings." "They ain't sayings, baby. They're survival notes." A month later, I found Derek's name in the local paper. Small article, county section, charged, sentenced, 2 years, no parole. I didn't cheer, didn't pray against him either. Just whispered, "Lesson received," and closed the paper. Because sometimes mercy wears handcuffs. That summer, the porch became a community again. Kids running past, neighbors waving, church folk dropping off pies. Peace had a scent. Lavender, lemon, and second chances. Every evening, I'd rock slow, the wooden boards creaking like memory, Rusty asleep at my feet, the world humming steady. And in that rhythm, a line formed in my mind: kindness ain't blindness, it's just sight that don't scream. I wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it to the fridge. Didn't know then that line would end up everywhere later. On t-shirts, quotes online, even a sermon once. But that's how truth travels. Quiet, patient, unstoppable. One morning, Rochelle came by with flowers. Yellow lilies, my favorite. "For the woman who taught me court can be holy ground," she said. I smiled, took them slow. "And for the woman who proved it," I said. We sat outside till the sun got tired of watching us talk. Birds started singing like they were gossiping about grace. And I thought, this right here, this is what revenge was trying to reach all along. Because peace, when it finally lands, don't make noise. It just settles. That night, as I turned off the porch light, I looked back at my reflection in the window. Same woman, same wrinkles, different power. I whispered, "They thought my kindness made me blind, but it only made me quiet till court." And then softer, "This was Aunt Helen. Still standin', still lovin', still learnin',